The Zythran Dominion had ruled the stars for centuries, their conquests precise, their strategies refined over generations. Admiral Xal'vyr stood at the edge of the observation deck, arms folded, watching the curious sight before him. A human child, no more than 10 cycles old, seated at a holographic console, utterly absorbed in what appeared to be a rudimentary starship simulator. The Admiral's mandibles twitched in faint amusement. Humans and their endless need for play. His own kind did not indulge in such frivolities. Zythran younglings were raised in strict academies, drilled in tactics, discipline, and the art of war from the moment they could hold a data slate. Yet here was this child, laughing, making exaggerated sound effects as his tiny fingers danced over the controls. A junior officer approached, speaking in clipped Zythran. Curious behavior, isn't it? Their young waste time on fiction while we mold ours into warriors. Xal'vyr hummed in agreement. It explains much. Humans succeed through luck and brute force. No refinement. No strategy. He turned his gaze back to the screen. The child's ship, a lightly armored corvette, darted between enemy vessels with reckless abandon. Shields flickered under enemy fire, but the child didn't hesitate. He diverted power mid-maneuver, flipping his ship in an instant, weapons roaring to life. His tiny brow furrowed in focus. Xal'vyr scoffed. A pointless effort. The child does not even grasp proper formation discipline. But something nagged at him. The movements, sloppy at first glance, held an odd fluidity, an instinctive unpredictability. The Zythran War Academies taught rigid structure, hold the line, strike in pre-calculated patterns, ensure overwhelming force. This was something else. A human adult, presumably the child's guardian, stood nearby, arms crossed, watching with mild amusement. "You like space combat, kid?" The boy grinned, never taking his eyes off the screen. "Yeah. Best way to get ready for the real thing someday." Xal'vyr tilted his head. "You intend to become a pilot?" The boy barely acknowledged him, too engrossed. "Uh-huh. Gonna fly with the fleet." The Admiral exhaled slowly. Humans. They had no reverence for the art of war, no understanding of the discipline it required. And yet, watching the child's hands move, adjusting trajectory, diverting power, executing precise, rapid-fire adjustments, Xal'vyr found himself unable to look away. He folded his arms tighter. Foolish. A real battle is not a game. No single pilot can outmaneuver a coordinated fleet. The boy just grinned. "Won a bet." And with that, he launched his attack. The simulated fleet had crumbled. What had begun as a lopsided engagement, a lone corvette against an armada, had become a massacre. Not because the boy's ship was superior. Not because the game was rigged. But because he had made it so. Xal'vyr no longer saw a child playing. He saw something far more unsettling. A mind that had never known war, yet instinctively wielded it like a sculptor's chisel. There was no hesitation in his movements, no second-guessing, only fluid, ruthless efficiency. And then came the final test. A no-win scenario. The enemy fleet, what remained of it, had finally adapted, pinning the boy's ship between overlapping fields of fire. A perfect kill box. No room to maneuver. No tricks left to play. The boy leaned forward slightly, fingers still, calculating. Then, he exhaled and made his choice. Instead of fighting to survive, he fought to end it. He pushed his corvette into full acceleration, directly toward the enemy's flagship. Their gunners scrambled to adjust, but his angle of approach was too tight. He diverted all remaining power to his frontal shields, enduring the last desperate barrage. The ship's hull buckled, alarms screamed warnings, but he never stopped moving. Impact. A direct collision with the enemy's bridge. Not a random crash, not a final act of defiance, but a precision strike, deliberate, calculated, devastating. The simulated explosion consumed the flagship in a chain reaction, tearing through the remaining vessels. The screen flickered. Mission success. Silence. Xal'vyr's breath came slow and measured. He had witnessed countless battles, commanded legions, seen war waged on planetary scales. And yet, This unsettled him in a way no battlefield ever had. Self-sacrifice was unthinkable among his kind. The Zythran Dominion's doctrine was built on patience, on calculated attrition, on measured, deliberate warfare. Every soldier knew their place, every loss accounted for in the grand strategy. To throw away one's life recklessly was an act of disgrace. And yet, this human child had not died in vain. His sacrifice was not reckless. It was the winning move. Xal'vyr's mandibles tightened. If this was how children thought, if this was the instinctive, casual play of a species that had barely begun to stretch across the stars, what did that mean for the war-hardened veterans of their fleets? A cold realization settled over him. The Dominion's tactics, their centuries of rigid, refined warfare, they were obsolete. Against creatures like this, against an enemy that saw war not as a careful game of endurance, but as a puzzle to be broken, they would lose. His eyes flicked back to the child. The boy stretched, yawning, before grinning at his guardian. That was fun. Can I go again? Xal'vyr turned away, his thoughts racing. Fun. The child had been playing. War was not a game to the Zythrans. But to humanity? It might as well be.